Jesus' family relationships were like. So one of them, who was Jesus' father on earth? Who was his earthly father? Yes? No, not Jesus. Who was Jesus' earthly father? Yes? Joseph. And so Joseph was what we consider like an adoptive father to Jesus.
Yeah.
And so when we think about him being an adoptive father, it was a choice by God that Joseph be his adoptive father. It was God's choice that Joseph would marry and take care of Mary. Okay, that she would be his wife. So let's take a look on page 51. Jesus teaches us how to live. God sent his only son Jesus into the world to live among us. The incarnation is the truth that the Son of God became man. So I want everybody to highlight that sentence. Find where it says the incarnation, second sentence in the first paragraph. The incarnation is the truth that the Son of God became man. Highlight that, please. Everyone. The incarnation is the truth that the Son of God became man. Jesus is both human and divine. And so when we think about what human and divine means, human means that the God took a human form, that he was born and he had a mother and father and he lived here on earth. And that the part that he's divine are the parts that we know that he's God, that he had all these miracles. We know that normal people cannot bring people back to life. We know that normal people cannot walk on water. We know that normal people might be a good cook, but they cannot multiply the loaves and the fish and feed millions of people after just a few loaves of fish and bread. So there's lots of miracles attributed to Jesus' life, and we know that we wouldn't be able to do that unless he was divine, not just human. Yes?
It says though in the Bible that Peter walked on the water, but he then fell in.
He did, and because Jesus allowed him to. So remember, that was a part that he was there trying to teach him a lesson. He was trying to teach him a lesson to have faith in him, not that he could walk on water. You know what I mean? It was to have faith in God, and that's the lesson that Jesus was trying to teach him at that time. So take a look on page 51 where it says Jesus is both human and divine. I want you to highlight that. Jesus is both human and divine. He is the Son of God and the Son of Mary. In the Gospels, we read that Jesus grew up in a place called Nazareth with his mother and his foster father, Joseph. Jesus loved and respected his human family. Mary and Joseph shared their Jewish faith with Jesus, and they taught him to pray according to the custom. So remember when we talk about Jesus' life, that there was no Christianity because there was no Christ, and that our religion is based on the Old Testament, which is what the Jewish people believe, and that is their faith. And so Jesus grew up going to the temple, going to the synagogue, and praying the same prayers that Jewish people pray today. When Jesus was about 30 years old, he began his public ministry in towns near where he lived. He taught them about God in a way that no one had before. And Jesus called God Abba. And so Abba is a word that means father. And it's not just any word that means father, but it's a very loving word that means father. So he was very rare that people ever referred to God as father. Before Jesus, nobody referred to God as father. They would often use the word Yahweh. And the word Yahweh was a name for God, but it was kind of like, do you know in Harry Potter when they say Voldemort and they say, he who must not be named?
Yeah.
God's name was so holy at the time where Jesus was alive that people didn't believe in praying the name of God. And so the name Yahweh was like something you didn't say out loud, but it was something you kind of thought of in your mind as a name for God. Yes?
Can we still call God Abba?
Sure, absolutely. Abba is just a loving way. It's kind of like the difference between saying father and dad now. So when you go home, how many of you call your dad father? Probably not very
Mom.
often, right? So do you call him dad?
No.
Yeah. So most of you, dad is like a more informal, loving way to refer to your father.
Like,
It's not formal, right? It's not proper. It's just an informal way that you would call your mother or your father, mom or dad. And that's how Jesus referred to God. So he referred to God as Abba. So the people of the time were very interested in the fact that he was saying Father to God when he prayed. And they kind of clued into that. It was like, this is a little interesting. They thought that was unique. So all through his life and in his teachings, Jesus showed how to live in holiness and happiness. He did this through his words and actions. He helped those who were poor and sick. He cared for the lonely, and he treated everyone with fairness and respect. So that's what set Jesus apart from others. So if Jesus died and he was 33 years old, and he started his ministry where he was preaching at the age of 30, how many years was he actively preaching? Matthew?
like about 3 or 2.
About 3 years. So all of those stories in the New Testament basically occurred in the public ministry of Jesus in about the span of 3 years. Alexis, are you with us? All right, turn in your books to page 52, please. 52. So for those 3 years, what did Jesus do with his disciples? When people heard Jesus' teachings, many were interested in what he had to say. So Jesus invited them to learn more by following him. And he said, come with me, go on this journey with me, travel from city to city, talk to other people about your faith, and then you'll learn about me. So he didn't just tell them about him. He said, come with me, hear me speak, and then you'll learn about what kind of person I was. So Jesus invited them to learn more about following him, and many said yes to this invitation. We know them as Jesus' disciples. Several of these disciples would pass on Jesus' teachings in sacred scripture. The disciples lived and worked together, sharing what they had and taking care of the needs of others. Jesus spent about 3 years with his disciples teaching, healing, and helping others. Jesus asked them to live as he did, spreading the Father's message of love. So let's turn back to page 51 and get our highlighters ready, because there's a couple important things there I want to make sure we have highlighted. The first thing is the definition of an incarnation. So the incarnation is the truth that the Son of God became man. Did everybody get a chance to highlight that? All right, the truth that the Son of God became man. It's in that first paragraph. Is called the incarnation is the truth that the Son of God became man. It looks like you have it highlighted already. Do you have it highlighted already, JJ?
Oh, yeah.
There you go. All right, look down a little bit further, and I want you to find where it says his foster father Joseph. So it says, in the Gospels, we read that Jesus grew up in Nazareth with his mother Mary and his foster father Joseph. Now this is an important part that everybody needs to pay attention to, because this is how we follow Jesus. Jesus set a very important example for us. And that very important example is the fact that Jesus loved and respected his human family. There are very few accounts in the Bible of Jesus ever disobeying Mary or Joseph. There was one that I can recall where he was following God's commandments and God's instructions, not Mary and Joseph. Does anybody remember that one?
Yeah.
So he was at a wedding. And actually, was it at the end of the wedding? They traveled. If you know anything about the history of the time of that Jesus was living, is that the men would travel first in a caravan. And then the women would travel with the children at the end. And so because he was a little older, they say Jesus was about 13, so he wasn't a child, but he wasn't yet an adult, that Mary thought Jesus was with Joseph, and Joseph thought Jesus was with Mary, and he actually stayed behind to speak in the temple to other people about God. And so when they arrived, cities away, they both were like, wait, where did he go? I thought he was with you. I thought he was with you. And so both Mary and Joseph had to travel several hours or even days back to where they originally were. And they were kind of upset and kind of worried at Jesus. And they were like, Jesus, you didn't follow our example. You didn't tell us where you were. You were supposed to be with us. And he said, no, I was following my Father's commands. And I was here to speak to the people because my Father told me to. So that was another example where he was calling God Father, and the people at the time were surprised by that. And they were like, oh, this is different. He really is the Son of God. All right, I want you to take a look at the box on the bottom of page 51. So in this page, it talks about how Jesus really helped the poor and the sick, that he treated everyone with fairness and respect. So this one says, think about someone you know who cares for others the way Jesus did. Describe the way this person shows you how to live in God's holiness and happiness. And then we're going to have you share. So just write a sentence or two, just maybe one or two sentences in that page about someone who cares for others the way Jesus did. Doesn't have to be somebody that you even know. It could be a family member. It could be a friend. Maybe it's somebody that you've just learned about and that it's not somebody that you've ever met. So take just a minute and write that down. Everybody should write down at least one sentence, and then we'll share those together as a class. Just write down one sentence.